After the pledge, please remain standing for a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just a moment of silence on the passing of a very good friend of mine and a very long-time employee of the town of Highlands in the highway department. Tony Rosselli passed away the other day, and just a moment of silence. Thank you. Public comment, is anybody here just for public comment? I will talk to you later, we're good. I'll bring it up in the meeting. You got time, you're here for a while? Okay, I'll go now. Okay.
I was invited by Captain Gathers today, and I know we spoke to Councilman Modlin. He was at our meeting from the ambulance corps. Chris Burns, Vice President of the ambulance. There's been an email thread going back and forth about the striker stretchers, and I understand you're going to discuss that tonight, but I didn't see it. I don't have an agenda, so I didn't see it. But in that email thread, there was another councilman that jumped in and talked about buying a new snow blower for the highway department because the snow blower they have might cost $3,000 to repair, so we should buy a new one, and that's about $60,000, and we need the sweeper and all the attachments to it, so that would be $70,000. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. I didn't read the email. I was told about the email, and I think that's great. But $3,000 will buy a lot of snow shovels to do the sidewalks. And it can be done, but I'm sure that the town is even discussing buying the snow blower to prevent the well-being of their employees and to tax the bodies and prevent injuries. Now, we got winter 3 or 4 months a year. We have probably 10 days a year that they would use this snow blower to clear the sidewalks. And again, we think it's great that you're even discussing this equipment, and because you care so much for your employees' health and well-being. Now I have one other question for the town board. Why don't you care that much about your volunteers? Now, our ambulance, we have over 600 calls every year, and it goes up every year. And unlike the snow blower, our stretchers are used on basically every call. They're used multiple times for each call, and there are multiple lifts prior to putting the patient on the stretcher and putting the stretcher in the ambulance. You have the reef stretcher, you put them in a stair chair, and we know, or I know, that you can't prevent every injury. However, but if you can even prevent one, why wouldn't you do it? We need these self-loaders on the ambulance, at least one. And we've been told, and Councilman Modlin was there at the meeting, our stretchers and our stair chairs are uncertified. Nobody will repair them anymore. They're old, they have to be replaced. A stretcher is $18,000. For 2 of them, it's $36,000. The stair chairs are $12,000 each. You got 36, 48, whatever, $60,000 to put just a stretcher and a stair chair in each ambulance. The deal that Stryker is showing us, and we looked at Fernco, and they're cheap, and you can buy refurbished, And if you read the reviews on them, it's just, stay away from this, it's junk, don't buy it, go Stryker. They have a corner on the market, and they're a good company. But if you think you're bringing a patient down the stairs, they're uncertified, so the town is liable. I mean, if we're pulling, and in this day and age, perfect example of an obese person, and I'm on a stretcher, and you're going down the driveway, and you hold it back with one hand, and the other guy is steering it with the other hand, and that stretcher collapses, and you got a 300-pound person bouncing off the ground, the town's liable for that. If you're in a stair chair, you got the guy on top, you got another guy, a volunteer, on the bottom, and you're coming down the stairs, and those treads collapse, you got a patient doing a forward somersault, and you got the guy on the bottom doing a backward somersault. Again, the town's liable. So I just think about that. There's always places to find the money. If you can find the money for the snow blower, I believe you should be able to find the money for your volunteers too. Because our health and well-being are just as important as any other town employee. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. I made Ms. Copolt a promise that I would put her on right away. And so, Ms. Copolt, if you'd like to come up to the microphone, introduce yourself to the folks at home.
Hi, Bob. Thanks. I just wanted to check in with you guys just to see if there's any follow-up from our last conversation on the lights.
Chris, you want to reply to that?
So we had a meeting with the New York Power Authority. I forget the electrical design engineer. The company's,
Guti Kanzo or something.
okay, there you go. Bo Reed was the guy's name. Bob, Kelly, and I met remotely downstairs with them, basically to discuss what was on hold between COVID and the action for the last year about the design. And that was basically it, nothing further beyond that.
We're just want to ask where we were before. Is there any possible option if we identify another source of lights for NYPA to do a contract with you to maintain them?
I have no answer for that. The only thing I can tell you is the last meeting, you mentioned manipulating existing light bulbs. They said at that meeting that every single one of them has mercury in it, so that can't be done. They have to be treated as hazmat and replaced. That I can't answer for you.
What about the sodium vapor ones?
They say there's traces of mercury in all of them. That's what they said at that meeting. So they would not go into an existing one and do anything to it. It would be replaced.
All right. I mean, they did tell you there's nickel and something in these LEDs, did they not? Where are you time-wise with all of this?
About a year behind schedule. Aside from that, we don't have final numbers yet, and we haven't signed off on any final design. We haven't even seen it yet. We just talked about it.
Okay. And where are you with the wireless component?
The what?
In the Gusta Conzo consulting material, they talked about needing a wireless component to manage them.
You talk about the nodes that we spoke about last meeting?
I don't know if we spoke about them last
We
meeting.
didn't get that specific. Basically, this guy, Bo, said we looked at every single street, at the optimum lighting for a particular street, where there's not enough and too much, and they emphatically stated that it'll be absolutely safe. They're well aware of all the concerns in the local community, well below the Kelvin that O&R is replacing lights in and whatnot, and that's about as much as we saw. We did it remotely, so we didn't see this report that the guy generated. It's a 90% design report, and I don't have it yet. They're refining it, and they're gonna send it out. I don't have it yet. I don't think anybody else does either.
When's your next meeting with them?
We don't have anything scheduled yet. They're doing their thing, gonna forward the information from the last meeting. That hasn't happened yet.
Okay. So I understand from you that you're not going to consider the orange LED light.
I am going to, first of all, I represent the town. It's not about me, it's about what the board decided to do. And what the board decided to do is what New York Power Authority is offering in the program. If
No, when
that's
did you, when
outside
did
the
you,
boundaries
you
of-
never voted on that, Richie?
Never vote on what?
The board decided to do what NIPE has. No, you have to vote on a specific program. That's our legal dispute.
We don't have the program yet because someone brought a lawsuit against us, New York and whatever have you, and that put us at least 6 months behind.
Yes, and that's why I'm going to court in the next few days
And that'll
to,
put us
for
another
more.
6 months behind.
Well, I think you know my position, and you know the position of the people who signed the petition, which is an orange LED or status quo. I mean, that hasn't changed.
You do what you must.
No, I'm trying to pin you down because I want to be accurate when I report to the court where you're at with this. And we've asked you, last time about the orange LED. I'm not trying to be confrontational, but this is just the fact of the matter. We don't have an agreement. So I want to see, you were going to go to them to see if they have new options. What I'm hearing from you is you don't know
Correct.
if there are any other new options.
Well, all I can tell you is specific to what you said at the last meeting. You asked if they can take an existing bulb, remove things and put something in there. And their answer to that is no, because it's a hazmat consideration.
Well, I just want to make sure I understand what you said. They can't remove the existing. Can you repeat that just because I'm not sure I followed everything?
Yeah, I mean.
No, are you talking about the
verbatim, if you're
mercury
looking to do that,
vapor?
I'm not gonna put myself in that kind of a trap. What they said
No, I'm
is,
not. I just want to make sure I understand.
if you have an existing bulb,
Right.
they're not gonna go into an existing bulb and do things to it. It's going to be removed and be replaced.
The entire bulb.
The entire
Fi-
head.
Whole fixture, the Cobra.
Okay, so there's, all right, that whatever is attaching, so I understand, the bulb to the something to the fixture. There's a something in the middle there.
You've got 3 of them right up on your road right now. The Cobra heads, LED lighting, that have been replaced by Ours and Rockland. So there's 3 of them up there, and I think 2 on Forest Hill and 1 on Canterbury.
Right, okay. So in other words, they took out the bulb and whatever was affixing the bulb to the fixture.
The whole fixture. The whole fixture went and the Cobra head was put
Who's
in
they?
with LED lighting.
You talk about what orange.
Are you
and
following my lack of
I'm-
confusion?
I'm totally confused by what you're even asking, Deborah. Deborah, you lost the lawsuit. You have the right to appeal the lawsuit.
Excuse me, Justin, you know we're in appeal. You know I'm going in for a motion. I've put you on notice. You got my communication the other day. I'm just trying to ask what the status
You
is.
lost the lawsuit. You have the ability to appeal.
I have appealed.
You filed a notice of appeal. You haven't filed the.
No, I
appeal
haven't
record.
perfected the appeal, but right now we're talking about what you're doing.
You
So
have not perfected
if
the
you're
appeal.
not willing to do the orange,
You
it's
are.
very simple. If you're not willing
We're
to
not.
do it, this is what I need to do. I want to be accurate to the court.
They asked you wanted to come in.
No, you invited me, you asked me to come in and speak to them. You did, Justin.
Okay. You can phrase it however you choose.
Well, it's clear
We're not
from,
gonna
it's clear from our
litigate
emails.
verbally at a public meeting.
Justin, that's fine. We
You
were talking
have your
about
legal
the,
rights to appeal, let me finish. They understand that. That is based on the record. That is not based on the verbal answers that any of these board members give you about post-litigation matters. They are entitled to move forward if they choose.
Justin, nobody's asking that. If you don't want to
It has
answer the
nothing
question,
to do with
okay,
your
I'm,
appeal,
Justin,
Deborah.
it's very simple. I'm
You're
asking you.
distorting what litigation is and what an appeal
No, I'm
is.
not, I don't know why you're getting this way with me. If you're gonna be this way, I'm just gonna leave and I'm gonna do what I have to do.
That's fine.
Because I asked you a
Please.
simple question. No, excuse me, I'm speaking. I asked you a simple question about the fixtures, because it seems like there's an issue with the bulb, and it seems like there's something else that affixes to the bulb to the main fixture. I think that's what I'm trying to understand.
Ms. Copeland, I've given you permission to come in to our meeting, and I've given you the courtesy of allowing you to speak. This is not a question and answer session. You spoke, we heard you, and I thank you very much for showing up.
Bob, it's very simple. We had a conversation last time. You weren't straightforward as to whether you were going to consider. You said, well, we might consider it, we might not. If I can't get a straight answer from you, that's fine. I can't get a straight answer from you. But you know what the position is. I want to be clear as well, right? Because I'm going to be asking for the other contract to be stopped. And I just want to know what you're doing. If you don't want to talk about it anymore, that's fine. But, you can accuse me publicly and say, I've held you up. I did it for a reason. There's an environmental problem. And I'm going to continue with my lawsuit.
Okay, back to real business.
Sorry.
Since we gave her the courtesy of starting off the beginning of the meeting, and I think Jeff has a lot more things to do. Jim, would you and Jeff like to kind of present to the board with what, I think Chris's numbers were slightly off. He was talking about two of everything where your prices were for one.
Well, at this point in time, we have that one ambulance that's a 2009. It's 11 years, 12 years old. In no way would I expect the town board to sink $60,000 into a 12-year-old ambulance.
Okay, but if I heard you right, you were talking about two of everything.
Can I
Sure.
say something?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so, Chris, thank you for coming. The concept that he presented is it's certainly the concept. And I was at this meeting last week, I think it was, when we were looking at the stretcher with Stryker. And the thing that caught my attention certainly was the fact, as Chris mentioned, the age of the equipment that we have now in the ambulance. It's uncertifiable. I think it is basically unrepairable, at least by Stryker. I believe they quoted that the lifetime of it that they recommend is 7 to 10 years. This is 15 years old, and they won't even touch it after it gets to be 14 years old. So basically, if something would happen to this, then we would need to figure out how we're gonna get it repaired. That's, in my opinion, that is an issue. But in my opinion, the even bigger issue is, as Chris mentioned, if something happens to the stretcher when they are on a call and they have someone on it, and those kinds of things. And it is a concern. And so, we got some information from Stryker. There was a little bit of an activity in the amount of time that we've had since this meeting took place last week to look for some alternate sources to compare this to. So far, that has not borne any fruit. Kelly and I were talking about this morning, in fact, and Jeff and I have had a conversation about the county or the state bid list.
Right.
And so we can go back and look at that and see what other alternatives there may be for this. But I think the bottom line, though, that was made very clear to me last week at this meeting, this demonstration, was that we've got some equipment in the ambulance that is the new ambulance that is being used, that is very old in terms of what its lifetime, recommended lifetime is. And if something happens to it, there's going to be an issue with us being able to repair it. And certainly, if something happens to it when it is being used, could be a significant issue that none of us want to have. And so asked Stryker to present us with a quote, because again, they were sort of the only ones we could go to right now to tee this up and have this conversation. But it's about, and I put this is all in your box, by the way, hard copy of these types of things, that it is for one, I call it a stretcher system, because, I'm definitely not a novice on this. I think of a stretcher, I sort of think of, stretcher and you're hauling people.
Canvas thing and the.
Yes, exactly, yeah, that's not what we're talking about here. That this is a stretcher system that has pneumatics, has hydraulics in it to be able to lift and lower the legs and do a bunch of different things to do the proper care for someone. And, you see these, and so it is a system. And then that's the stretcher, and then there's also the stair chair that is, as Chris mentioned, is what you would use to get someone down some stairs. That is beyond its lifetime, non-repairable, non-warrantyable. Stryker, for example, would not even touch this.
There would be nobody that would touch it.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
a liability, and the difference is it's not certifiable. It's a liability. They will not touch it because it's past its lifetime
Right.
warranty.
Right.
if in fact something was to happen, it's a liability on both parties.
Yeah.
Patient, us, town.
Right.
It's not that it's certifiable, it's a liability.
Right. That's,
Both, on both ambulances, stretcher and the stair chair are 15 to 16 years old. Stryker, as you heard, goes out 7 to 10 years.
Mhm.
Once they start going past that time limit, they're way out of bounds. And in other words, if something was to happen to the stretcher now, they would not fix that stretcher. And Chris is correct. It's about $18,000 to $20,000 for a new stretcher. A stair chair is $15,000 to $16,000. Those are the type of equipment we need to get in and out of Highland Falls, Fort Montgomery,
Yeah.
houses and areas like that.
Yeah. And I think the number that Bob was talking about, the quote that we are seeing from Stryker that you all have in your boxes, and you've got copies of, is for one system, one stretcher, and I may not be using the right term, but
Power
one
system.
one power system, that's the stretcher, and one stair chair. So the two pieces of equipment is, round numbers, $45,000.
And Jim,
Chris.
if I'm not mistaken, they also included the Lucas machine, which is an automatic chest compression for CPR,
Stair chair.
and they included an AED machine, the automatic defibrillator, and you can hook up the defibrillator with the Lucas machine, and you don't have to start compressions to shock
You
somebody.
don't have to stop compressions.
Yeah.
On this new AED, that Chris is referring to, with the Lucas, and that's in the bundle pack.
That's the bundle, right?
You will
That's,
never have to
that's a different
stop
price.
compression, because it
Right.
will I'll read the rhythms, and so I know, and they will continue, the Lucas will continue compressing.
Right.
At the proper rate, speed and everything,
Right.
so.
And it's hands-free, you're not touching it.
You're not touching it, exactly.
So,
That's in, and so I can clarify for everybody, that's in one bundle. That bundle is 60,000.
right,
Standalone with just the the stair chair and the power stretcher was 45,000.
right.
Chris, at the meeting, we all talked about not putting it in 385, which is an old one. But Bryson also told us that it's transferable. So if we had put it in there and we got a new ambulance, it would be transferred over with no cost, so.
Right.
But we're not gonna do that. We absolutely need this power stretcher and
So board members, what you have are two quotes. You have a quote for just the stretcher system and the stair chair. And then you have a quote for the bundled system that Jeff and Chris were just talking about, that includes this automatic chest compression, AED, is the same AED tie that Frank has been talking about and everything, yeah. And so there's a couple of options for us to be looking at. I asked for both the options that were talked about so we could see what the numbers are. So we're talking 60,000-ish, you've got the quotes here, but round numbers, 60,000, 45,000.
Now, is there some sort of a payment plan that?
Yes,
Yes.
and so, do you want to talk about Jeff, or?
yes, there is. He set it up, but in the thread, in the email thread, he talks about one payment and within 3 months, once you get the machine in, after 3 months. Then in the second year, another payment, third year, another payment, fourth year, a payment. So it doesn't put the town, the taxpayers and us at a disadvantage by doing it all at once. So that's 0% financing.
If you and the ambulance corps, whoever would represent it and what have you, Jeff, and Kelly could get together and present to the board exactly how we're gonna pay for it.
Okay.
I think you've already mostly done it anyway, or they have for us. But if we can get that down in black and white, our next meeting, talk about doing it.
I'm sorry, Bob.
Now, I know they threw
The
it,
31st is the end of the 0% financing.
but, you know, I mentioned this to Jim before, I don't like being high pressured like that.
Okay, and
No, maybe you can tell them that we don't like being high pressured.
okay. I don't know if it's that or just saying.
And if you don't pick this up right now today, the
Right.
price is going up.
I get that. I understand what you're saying, but this is their policy. This is when it ends. We got on board a little bit late, so that's when it is. I don't know if that is pressure. It's just the end of the 0% fine.
Right, and what we were talking about is, my understanding of the 0%, it's a Stryker corporate thing
Yes, and that's
that,
why.
that they are offering. And I expressed to the Stryker rep that I'm just concerned about, here it is mid-March, being able to make this all happen by the end of the month. Yeah, I just expressed that concern. And so I said, so let's see what that looks like, but then let's also see if we do, because we need to have the order placed by the end of the month. If we cannot have an order placed by the end of the month, then what does that mean? He went back, and in this quote, you'll see what the various financing is. You know, there's some 2 or 4% interest or some, but it's still broken down into payment plans and stuff like that, which, you know, again, we can go through and look at it, but I wanted to tee this up now, because there is a sense of urgency. And the sooner we can make this happen, the better
Okay, now,
it's gonna be.
the chief has asked me to set up a meeting for the 29th, that'll be next Monday, to approve his plan. I think he has to have one more.
Please reform?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he has to have one more
One
meeting
more
on
meeting.
that. So if we decided to do it, we could do it on that night.
Okay, does that sound,
Works for me.
Kelly?
Yeah,
Okay.
I just want to mention though, I know I've mentioned it to Jim, that purchases over $20,000 that are non-public works require a bid. So I think you should talk to Stryker about that, because if they really are the only vendor out there, they're probably on a state bid. I'm sure they must have run into this situation with other municipalities.
Actually, Kelly, this too. Furno and then, and nobody goes to Furno. But you're correct.
So you
We'll
gotta
we'll have to
get,
put it
the-
in.
you gotta get the bid, you gotta get the
I have
quote.
no problem with that.
Yeah, get a bid.
So let's get the
for-
bid then.
We don't have to accept the lowest bid,
Okay,
and we'll go from there.
thank you.
The lowest responsible bidder is what you're supposed to, but if there is reputational issues regarding the other company.
That's what I mean, we don't have to.
52.
It's the responsibility.
But you should check the state bid list.
Yes.
Okay. Stryker has 52 ambulance corps that in Orange County. And I'm just saying,
It's
they
just
all
based
use
on
them.
the
Still based
monetary
on-
thresholds.
Right,
that-
okay.
How the law applies.
So I think we know that it's going to exceed that threshold. So I think the question is to get back with Stryker, and we need a bid. I mean, is that what I'm hearing? So have them, because he asked me, do you want me to submit a bid? And I told him, no, not yet, when I have this conversation first. And so we'll get back to him, have him actually submit a bid, and we'll get this all in place for next Monday.
Well, both companies have to.
So,
Okay,
Kelly,
Okay.
I'll come and see you tomorrow and get the
Unless,
final.
unless they're listed on the state bid system, in which case you don't have to go through the bidding requirements.
Exactly.
Okay.
You should talk to Stryker, start there, see if they're on state bid.
Okay.
and if they're
And
not,
I'll get in contact with Frank.
If they're not, then you need bids from more than one company.
okay.
You're supposed to have a public bidding process if you are spending more than $20,000 on equipment. So that a company that Jeff may not have heard of may submit a bid, right?
Okay.
The point of the statute, right, is to open it up fairly to
Right.
companies in these lines of business when you are spending what the state has deemed a significant amount of money on.
So just so I'm clear, so if they are not on the state bid list, we can still get a bid from them, but we need a bid from another company that may
Any
be.
other company that's out there,
Correct.
bottom line.
Okay,
Pat Patterson, he buys equipment off state bid. I would have a conversation with him too. He'll be able to point you in the right direction where to look.
I'll talk to him tomorrow.
okay.
Thank you.
Now, what happens if neither are on the bid list? Does it matter?
No, so state, I don't know how much we want to go into the public bidding laws tonight, but the state bid list is an exception to the
Okay,
general.
so if they are, that's where I was gonna go.
So
So
if
if
they
they,
are listed on state bid, you can buy them without getting corresponding quotes from
gotcha,
anybody.
okay, all right, okay.
Chief, you put your hand up?
Just one comment. I do not believe, I've got 43 years' experience in EMS.
Mm-hmm.
Stryker is the only company that makes the Lucas device, and they're the only company that makes that specific AED that would match the other
Exactly.
ones that we're purchasing.
Yeah.
So that would play a part in the bid process to get the equipment in that, the bundle.
In the bundle.
Furno would not be able to provide the CPR device and the AED. Those are proprietary to Stryker.
So as the chief is pointing out, sole source is another exception to the bidding requirements, but again, it depends on, right, what you are actually purchasing, so.
In other words, leave a paper trail.
Okay. So, we'll hear from you. And
We'll do it.
Very quickly, I'll ask for a motion to have a meeting next Monday on the 29th at 7 PM.
Motion. Second.
All in favor? Okay, we'll get that out of the way. June, you can advertise that somehow. In answer to Chris, the $3,000 for the skid steer is to do some hydraulic work on the machine, not the snow blower. The snow blower doesn't blow snow no matter what we do to it, so they said it's not repairable. So, we are looking for a skid steer, but it also has the capability of being a front-end loader, a street sweeper, and a snow blower.
And a forklift.
And a forklift. So it's not exactly how you described the $3,000, making it sound as if, well, we're not caring about the ammo store, but we're worried about that piece of equipment. Just correcting you, if you don't mind.
And that skid steer is 23 years old.
Yeah, the one we have now?
That's right.
That's even older than your litter, stretcher, whatever you call it. Don't they call it litters anymore? No?
I'm sorry?
Don't they call it a litter anymore?
No. That's the reeds you're talking about.
It was good enough in the Army 50 years ago, I don't know why. All right, where are we at? I'm getting lost here. Approval of the previous minutes.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So carried. Communications, I have a letter from, or an email from Mindy Kimball. Mindy, she would like to get some guidance from the board on who we want on the working group that would help. The CEAC could recommend working group members, but we want to make sure that the working group is okayed by the board. If the board doesn't have any specific members in mind, then let us know. Either way, we can put a list together for the board. So what I would like to see as the supervisor, Richie, I would like you to be a member of the board.
If you think that I'm a good choice, I'd be happy to do it.
I absolutely think you would be a good choice, and you can work with Olga and her committee to put the, the only thing that bothers me, Olga, is we're doing this separate from the village. I wish the village would, I'll take away the curses and just say, I wish the village would go ahead and do it. I provided them with all our legal paperwork, everything we've done. I don't know what's holding them up.
The election.
Well,
I tried to get it on the agenda for the last meeting, and that failed. But I'm hoping that with the next meeting is with the new board. So I'll ask again for it to be put on the agenda, and hopefully it will pass. But what I would suggest is the working group be comprised of 2 individuals from Fort Montgomery and 2 from the village of Highland Falls. And that way, we're all represented, and when the time comes, we'll be able to, go forward. So, and then a chair, so 5 people, somebody to break the time.
so if you would work with Richie and
Yeah, so, if you have suggested names, I put out some feelers, people who, I think might be good candidates, but no promises, no commitments. I could just add our suggestions to any list that you're starting, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you.
Did you have anything else for tonight, Olga?
Not for tonight, I'll just do one thing at a time.
All right, okay. Okay, we spent out of the paying account $44,326. big items are Cargill Road and Salt is the icer, $5,203. Orange and Rockland, $3,417. Electric, that's for electric and supply for all departments. The Reed Systems, $2,940 for liquid road de-icer. State Controller, $6,765 for court fees collected. Rockland County Solid Waste, $20,667. That's for 1 month of landfill charges. Board Liaison Reports, we'll start with Jim.
Okay. Certainly was going to talk about the ambulance, but we did that already, so I appreciate that. In terms of other liaison reports, I've had a couple of meetings over at West Point. Just, again, you've got some information, board members, you've got some information regarding this. There's a program that's been around for a few years now. Highland Falls, I understand, has taken advantage of it or is working through taking advantage of it. It's something called an Intergovernmental Support Agreement, IGSA. It is something that the government's Department of Defense initiative. It has been rolled out with a number of military, Army installations around the country. You'll see this in the briefing charts that I left with you. And it is an opportunity for the government, the federal government, to save money by leveraging support agreements with local communities. I think, not to speak for Highland Falls, but I think one of the things that Highland Falls has done or is in the process of doing is providing road salt to West Point, to the federal government. The example there is that it actually would cost the federal government more per ton for road salt than what Highland Falls, and I'm assuming us, would be able to get through. I think it's the state bid list. And so and then Highland Falls will resell this to the federal government. So yeah, I think there's a lot of other opportunities. They are looking for pet control. We do pet control. Or no, I shouldn't say pet control. I shouldn't call it pet control. Stray animal control. They're looking for grass cutting.
Just dog control.
Yes, and they made it clear, and whatever it is, the key to that is an existing service that we either provide or we have a contract to provide. And so so ours is dog control. That is, I asked them what do they mean by stray animals, and they basically said dogs, quite frankly. And because I was concerned about wild animals, but dogs is really what they're talking about. But there's a number of different things: high priority items, stray animal control, grass cutting, sanitation, garbage pickup, a number of listing of items that they are looking for to see if we would be interested in doing. As we've talked about before, a means to look for alternative or additional funding sources for us. This might be a way to get some additional funding. And the key to this, there is a process. Key to this is there needs to be a demonstrated cost savings for the federal government, and there needs to be a demonstrated advantage to the local community. If that type of win-win type of thing is not happening, then the agreement doesn't take place. But there is a process, and from what I understand, because it is sort of new at West Point, it takes a little bit of time to go through the process. So this might be something that if we would work on this, come up with some ideas, maybe by the end of this calendar year, I think we might be able to see some stuff. So this would be something more of a next year's budget type of thing that perhaps we could factor in. But they are very motivated, very interested in seeing, and again, it's not only the town of Highlands, but also Highland Falls. Those are really the two communities that they're looking at, town of Highlands and Highland Falls, to see what we can do and how we can partner with this whole thing. I asked if this would be part of an IGSA agreement or not, but what about equipment sharing? Because You know, I know in our budget, we're doing this, Highland Falls is doing the same thing in terms of DPW type of equipment. West Point has a rather significant listing of equipment within their public works. And they certainly are amenable and open to looking at those kinds of relationships. You know, they have equipment sitting around not being done. Why can't we use it? That was sort of my question. They said, yeah, let's talk about that. So I've actually had that conversation with Pat Patterson, just sort of in general terms, get him thinking about some things. So there may be opportunities also within this IGSA framework or maybe something else. But first we need to identify if this is something that we would be interested in, what kind of things could we possibly share, equipment that they may have, equipment that we might have, those kinds of things. And so, you know, we've got resource. I guess where I'm coming from on this is we've got resources right here in this geographic area. If somehow we can figure out how can we best leverage and utilize these. And my takeaway from that meeting at West Point is that they're very, very interested in working with us on that. That's the intergovernmental support agreement. There was also, and this happens, and these meetings are going to be going on basically monthly or so. There was also another meeting that takes place generally 2 or 3 times a year. It's called the Installation Planning Board. And again, this is all part of my liaison to West Point when I'm being involved in these. And that took place last week. And you've got some information about that also. One of the things I just wanted to, and this is hosted by the superintendent, the Installation Planning Board. One of the things that I just wanted to make sure the board was aware, community was aware, is that the superintendent has what he calls an integrated priorities list, the things that he is most focused on. And there are 7 of those items. One of the 7 of those items that he is focused on and is one of the priorities for the military, for West Point Military Academy, is strengthen community well-being and health. And that is squarely liaison and working with the local communities. And so they're looking for our support, looking for our engagement. This IGSA stuff that I was talking about is part and parcel to that. But there's these continued relationships that we need to continue working and continue building and everything. So that's that piece. I'll continue going to those meetings and updating you all on that. I attended the village board meeting that Olga alluded to. The last one, it was a very short meeting. It was right before the elections. And I will continue doing that with the new village board. And I just would like to say congratulations to everyone who ran in the village and to all the folks that got elected. So that's it for me.
Thank you. Richard? Again, I'd like to thank all the municipal employees for all their good hard work, inside and outside. Last week, I spoke with Pat Patterson about the skid steer that's been referred to already, and asked him to prepare some information for the board to look at. I would point out, as it already has been, that this is more than just a snow blower. It's a multi-purpose vehicle. A few years ago, we recognized the importance of it, and we started putting money into a reserve fund for this piece of equipment. So it's not should I say, something that just has popped up. There is problems with this piece of equipment. It is 23 years old, and we have a need for it to be replaced. I think Pat's looked into it, although we don't have all the money in the reserve fund at this time. I think that if we went forward, we can spread it out over 3 years, and by next year we'll have it, but again, it won't have to be paid for in full until the following year. So information's before you. I would think it'd be something that we would want to consider, but I'll leave it up to the board. That's all I have, Bob.
Thank you. Alderman King?
Good evening, everyone, and good evening, everyone at home. I have a few notes here this evening. First, I'll start with the dial-a bus. And bear with me as I read a resolution from the New York State Department of Transportation. This is Resolution 2385. Dear Mr. Livesey, the Commissioner of the New York State Department of Transportation, in consultation with the Public Transportation Safety Board, approved a satisfactory and feasible your system safety program plan submission at the March 11, 2021 board meeting. A copy of the resolution is attached for your files. If any changes occur throughout the year, feel free to update your plan. And the resolution is, whereas pursuant to Section 17B of the Transportation Law, Town of Highlands is required to prepare and submit a system safety program plan for transportation safety, including but not limited to equipment, maintenance, procedures, personnel safety, training, programs, accident reporting systems, passenger safety practices, and persons responsible for the implementation such practices and programs. And whereas the PTSB issued resolution number 1236 dated August 15, 1990, which required each property to update its system safety program plan according to revised guidelines developed by the PTSB. And whereas Town of Highlands submitted and had approved an update to its system safety program plan on March 13, 2019. And whereas Town of Highlands submitted revisions to its system safety program plan for biannual certification on February 26, 2021. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the system safety program plan submitted by the Town of Highlands, upon careful review and consideration by the Commissioner of the New York State Department of Transportation, in consultation with the Public Transportation Safety Board, is found to be satisfactory and feasible and pursuant to Section 17B of the Transportation Law, is therefore approved. Now, it was important for me to read that, signed Clifford Thomas, Executive Director, Public Transportation Safety Board, because folks in our dial bus, spearheaded by Ms. Colleen Sloan, have done a great job to put this together, submit it on time, and then get the approvals and the recognition from the New York State people. So let's give her a round of applause. Thank you very much. Moving on to recreation. I'm sorry to report that we have no movement on our formal agreement between the Town of Highlands and the Village of Highland Falls. As we briefed in the last meetings, we were trying to make some consolidated efforts to put together recreational programs for the youth. And we had some discussions and email traffic with the mayor. And at the time, it looked like we had great momentum, and now we at a standstill. Now, I don't know why exactly, but I have reached out to the mayor, and I have asked for a meeting for this week. Let's see if he responds to me by hopefully tomorrow. But more to follow on that issue. But I think if we can get this thing done, it'll be beneficial to the entire Town of Highlands, and we'll be able to have more activities in that recreation center / community centers / senior center. It'll be a lot going on there if we can put our recreation director and dial bus director down there and work out of that building and keep it active and open so people can come there as they see fit to be able to take advantage of those services. The mayor says he's on board. Now all we need to do is sign an agreement. Moving on to the police. We've had some very, very good and professional meetings on the executive order given by Governor Cuomo about reform of police. And so I'm happy to report that our committee, that is, very diverse, with folks like the superintendent of schools, others like Pastor Karina Felice, and others like Victor Cadet, a young man from James O'Neill High School. There's a plethora of people on this thing, and we meet very frequently, and a lot of energy has been gone into making sure that we look at our systems and our processes and our policies and see where we can improve. So as you mentioned earlier, Supervisor, we got one more meeting to go, and then they're gonna present, there's already a draft copy, you've already seen that, of the policy, but then we wanna give more input to the community before we finalize it. But, and I also want to say to my colleague, Jim Mollin's point, very good brief, by the way, down there about the intergovernmental support. That's why I voted for you, because I knew you'd be the right guy for that job. But Colonel Roselle was at our police reform meeting. So go back to this intergovernmental exchange, and I thought she brought a lot of value to being in that meeting and talked about how we can partner in certain areas. So to Jim's point, we're continuously doing that.
Ty, before you go any further,
Sir.
the next meeting is Wednesday. I can't make it, so you're going to take my place.
I got you.
All right.
Won't be as good as you, but I'll be
Oh, I know.
close.
I know.
Moving on to senior recreation. I got a note from our senior coordinator that they've had 30 contacts, meaning they've engaged with 30 senior citizens from the last meeting last month to now, from last month to now. And some of the things that were discussed in these engagements, because again, keep in mind, we still are under the conditions of a pandemic. So they talk about tips to help stay well during COVID-19 restrictions, emphasizing to stay hydrated, getting adequate sleep, getting out and moving. Example, by the way, today was a beautiful day. I'm sure you would all agree. We had a lot of activity outside today. Lots of folks were in the village of Highland Falls, Fort Montgomery, West Point, just out and about. So I think happy days are around the corner. Also, she says, join us at the corner of Walnut and, how do you pronounce this? Wyandotte, W-Y-A?
Wyandotte?
Wyandotte, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 2 p.m. to 2:30 p.m., walking at your own pace. So she's encouraging senior citizens to be active in physical fitness at their own pace and with the considerations of their health providers. Community scavenger hunt is coming soon. No date yet on that, but we're planning a community scavenger hunt coming soon. Disaster relief, disaster preparedness. Our coordinator, Kurt Hahn, is still developing a new kind of website to kind of communicate out to the public. So more to follow on that. Just wanted you to know that's ongoing. COVID vaccines. You've been hearing me talk about trying to get a pop-up site, and then I stopped talking about that because it didn't look like it was going to happen. Now, what did happen, I talked with Senator Skoufis about his efforts to put some resources in Newburgh, which is 15, 20 minutes from us. And then I told him if that would be the case, that we would see if we could shuttle people there. Now, that's either happening or not, but what is good news story is it seems as though we've had more vaccines come into the state of New York. There's been an increase, and so people are having more success at getting appointments and getting their vaccines. And to include right here locally at Walgreens. So I think there are more opportunities than there was when we talked about this in the beginning. So keep doing that. And I just want to encourage the community. You know, I got my first one. My second was on the 29th. My mother got her second one today. My father's both vaccines from the VA. So I just want to encourage folks, take advantage. I know the supervisor and his spouse has gotten both their shots. All the way down on the end, there's a two-shot recipient, Jim Motlin. And so what we're trying to do by example is just say, listen, this stuff is for our benefit. You know, this is how we're going to stop the spread. This is how we're going to get back to as close as normal as possible. By wearing these masks, by socially distancing still, but then also getting this vaccine. And as more people do that, then I think we'll get closer and closer back to normal. So we wanted to encourage that. And subject to anybody's questions, I think that is all I have. I sound like Richie Sullivan tonight with all this talking.
You guys all did a lot more than I'm gonna do, so.
Okay, you're on.
My turn? All right. So, the ambulance corps, had along with the Fort Montgomery Fire Department, Highland Falls Fire Department, had a town-wide services recruiting fair. I saw Bob up there Saturday of the 13th, I think it was. It was a pleasure to see everybody, but I wanted to note the most impressive person I saw was a girl, I believe her name was Kayleen from the ambulance corps, 16 years old. How long has she been in? About 2 months now, Jeff? Something like that? Very inspirational to see that, so that was very noted. And I bought some 50/50 tickets. If I win, I'm going to give it right back to the ambulance corps so you can buy all these things we're talking about.
We'll hold you to that.
Okay? All right. Down at the sewer plant, so we've all been talking about the construction. The infamous belt press, which is the crux of that project, is on site. I haven't been down there to see
It
it. It's there.
Oh,
It's
wow.
covered up, it's down there. So that's on site, and that project is, we'll see about the May 1st deadline. If I was a betting man, I'd only go about 60% on that one, but they say they can achieve it. You're there more often than I am, Daley. But the belt press is there, and that will be getting tied in. All the DMRs are up to date down there, and the annual report that's due at the end of March has been submitted to the DEC, the EPA electronically the way it's supposed to be. So that's all good. The Citizens Environmental Advisory Committee met on Friday the 12th, and I owe them 2 months' worth of minutes, so I don't have a lot to report on until I do the minutes, Olga. Sorry about that. Back to the Zoning Board of Appeals did not meet in the month of March. I just wanted to say as safely as I can, in the last year or year and a half, they've been pretty busy with a couple of things. 2 of them are Article 78s, which were dismissed as of last week. And I'm not going to get too involved in numbers except to say we've increased their legal fees in the last year. The amount owed for these cases is 7.5 times the amount that we budgeted for. Those are escrow fees, so I'll leave that at that. Can expound on that more in the future. Planning Board, they met on the 18th. I watched it remotely. Justin's their attorney. They had a few public hearings involving lot changes in the Village of Highland Falls, which they're working on making them easier because the village code and town code are different. We've talked about that before. Down in Fort Montgomery, the Trans Hudson Dunkin' Donuts, I think, had an amended site plan. Is that correct, Justin?
That's correct, Ricky.
So they were before the board. There were a couple of informal inquiries. And this is a little bit uncomfortable, but I'd like to talk about it. The planning board cannot tell somebody, say if it's an R5 zone, they can't say it's going to be a condominium or it's going to be an apartment. That kind of evolves out of the process. And so at the planning board meeting, there were a couple of inquiries about a couple of empty buildings in town. And I'm not going to say specifically what they were looking for. This kind of goes out to Jim. With Key Bank and with the empty school up on Mountain Avenue, if West Point is looking for a building to do something with, it would be really great for them to consider those buildings so long as we can get some type of an accessible out of it. Because the route that we're going, not to criticize anybody, the Allo property went to Scenic Hudson. That's going to go off the tax rolls. I believe Thayer Flats is on hold for a year. I think they're trying to rent out those properties, the last I heard. I think that project's on hold. I'm pretty confident on that one. Key Bank was a big deal when they had the certiorari lawsuit or they grieved and it was lowered down. And the selling price of that building was significantly less than what was ruled to be the agreed price after the grievance. So it's just a trend in Highland Falls that I would like to not see keep going, where things are coming off the tax rolls. And if West Point can use any of these buildings for something, bring them on down. That's kind of what I want to say about that. In the building department, for the month of February, there were 18 applications were received. 15 permits were issued, 5 certificates of compliance, COs were issued, 6 building permit inspections, 0 fire safety inspections. That number is going to change next month significantly. 6 advisory notices, 3 municipal searches, 2 planning board applications were received, 7 FOIL requests, a total of 12 numbers of physical inspections. And on the LED lighting, at the next meeting, if Bob would like me to, I'd like to sit here and talk to the community about the whole history behind that. And what it started with, I will talk about. I got on the board, and there were some emails coming from a person named David Rose. I don't think you quite knew what they were, and I'm not sure if you quite knew what they were. What that was is before me, Bill Etzel had, I believe it was Bill, had entertained basically a utility advocacy company to try and get money back for being overcharged. Over a 3-year period of time, we turned that into, it was either $15,000 or $18,000 that we got as a refund.
Yes.
Also, by changing our energy company a couple of years ago, or a year and a half ago, whatever it was, when I first started on the board, the street lighting bill budget was $52,000 a year. I think we were spending about $47,000 in actuality. We are now down to $34,000 a year. And this whole LED project was ambitious. It was a good presentation made. It was with the best interest of the community and everybody. There's 400,000 of these things within a 20-mile radius of us. So I assure the community and everybody else, I'm not trying to do any harm to anybody. These are everywhere, and they're a home run for most communities environmentally. If it doesn't happen here, I won't lose any sleep over it. But I just wanted everybody to know I'm not on the take. We're open, we're transparent. We've been blocked from the last year basically from doing anything between the virus and court action, and we're trying. And that's kind of all I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you for the work that you do. Kelly, I kind of have a question for you. Then within the last couple of days, the Smart City grant,
Yes.
is that just a one-page form I got to fill out? And
I think so. They sent an email with the paperwork, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like one page. It's a grant for $20,000 towards our project of LED lighting, and it's a grant. There's no payback, no loan, no nothing. So I'll get together with you tomorrow, and we'll fill out the paperwork and send it in. I think it's done. I do it on the computer, if I remember
I
right.
think so.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Chief, do you have anything? Nothing, huh?
Running smooth.
Okay, all right. Does anybody have anything, well, we'll take it in order, never mind. What was I going to say? Kelly, do you have anything?
No.
Okay. So then the next thing, the public employer health emergency plan. The governor, in his infinite wisdom, sent down basically orders to the town, me, to put together an emergency plan for the town of Highlands. I used a little bit of my brains and mostly a sample plan that I worked into the language of the town of Highlands. I didn't do a couple of things that were suggested, which Justin caught very, very quickly, but that's all right. And my answers was, well, Justin, I'm going to wing it. But anyway, I have a resolution to adopt this public employer health emergency plan. Whereas in accordance with this big long number, which amends New York State labor laws, section 27C, the town of Highlands as a public employer is required to adopt a plan for operations in the event of a declared public health emergency involving a communicable disease, which shall include the identification of essential personnel, needed personnel, protective equipment, staggering work shifts, and the provision of necessary technology for telecommunicating. Whereas the town board, town of Highlands, has caused a plan meeting the requirements of labor law, section 27C, to be drafted for the town. Whereas the draft has been finalized as the public employer health emergency plan for the town of Highlands, annexed here too. Now therefore be resolved, the town board, town of Highlands hereby adopts the final public employer health emergency plan for the town of Highlands. The town of Highlands employee handbook is hereby amended to include the public employer health emergency plan, and such amendment will be distributed to the town employees. The town clerk is hereby directed to publish the adopted public employer health emergency plan in a clear and conspicuous location and on the town's website in a location accessible to the town employees. The foregoing resolution shall take place immediately. Do I have a motion to adopt?
Motion.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Sullivan?
Aye.
Councilmember King?
Aye.
Councilmember Perry?
Aye.
Councilmember Moblin?
Aye.
Supervisor Lizzie?
Aye. And not only did I work on it, I appreciate the help that Kelly gave me, especially getting rid of some yellow things on there, yellow highlights. But more than that, she put a little sense in my plan. Now we have the Town of Highlands Police Reform Plan. This was put down by the governor, which has to be finalized by April the 1st. Therefore, our meeting this coming Monday. I think everyone got a copy in the mail, in email. You're asked by the chief to go through it and see if you can find anything that is wrong in there, including typos and things such as that. I noted one minor typo, and then there's a couple of shaded areas, which I don't know if you meant to have the shaded areas or not, but I'm sure he can see them himself.
Yeah, he shaded a couple areas that he wanted me to pay particular attention to. And
Oh, is that what it was
I'll
for?
get back to him and the board in the next couple of days on those areas.
Okay, so we'll bring that up at our next, there's any questions on this?
It looks like a good document.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of good
God
work.
bless him, he put a lot of work into
Yeah,
this.
a lot of good work in that, obviously.
Okay, Jeff, I'm glad you're here. We have an agreement that is with New Windsor and New Windsor ALS. They're our ALS provider, and an ALS provider is called out on most cases, is that the right word, most cases, by 911?
That's correct.
And,
If we call them both.
and we call them also if we decide.
We're out on the call and we feel we need an ALS, we'll ask 911 to attach you.
Okay, so we have a contract with them, which is very beneficial to the patient. The patient, or the patient doesn't pay for ALS. You correct me, anything I say wrong here, all right? The patient doesn't pay for it, for the service. The town pays for it at a rate of $365, and the patient does not get billed for it. The only billing done is with the patient's insurance company, which the town receives that money, and out of that money, we pay the $365. I know from experience, yes, Chris?
That is in fact if the patient is over 65 years old and on Medicare.
All right, okay, good. See, that's why I said, I mean, it's all in here, I know the difference between using this service and another service coming in, because it's around $700 or $800, if I remember right, an extra charge to the patient.
It's a little more than that.
Mhm.
So it's all the $1,300.
Yeah, oh, okay. So anyway, I have this agreement, which was checked through by Jeff, and was there anything except the price that was wrong in it?
That's the only thing that went up, and then we talked to Mikey Bates, and we're now 365 versus 395.
Okay,
So 325.
okay,
That's due to everything that's going on.
all right. So I'll ask for a motion from the board to allow me to sign this agreement.
Bob, would it be beneficial, because, for the public that's out there, because I asked this question myself, would it be beneficial for Jeff just to explain what ALS is and why we even need to have this as opposed to our EMTs that we have in the community?
Sure.
Basically, we're a basic life service. We're on the first on call. We do all the things that EMT and that level does. Paramedic will come in, which is advanced life service.
Okay.
They have tons of medicines that they can give for stroke, heart attack, you name it, they have it on board. So when we call for an ALS unit, we're calling because that patient or patients are in dire trouble. So they come along, they come and they help.
And it's the paramedics.
It's the
and
paramedics,
those
they're
things,
higher
yes.
level than EMTs.
Right, okay.
And they can give all types of medicines. We can only do about 5 or 6.
Good. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you. Okay. I'll ask for a motion to allow me to sign the agreement.
Yeah, so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
So carried, thank you. Now, the famous skid steer. I don't know why they call it a skid steer. That's just, I think we ought to explain that to folks out there, what a skid steer is.
Yeah, that's serious.
That's that little mini,
Bobcat.
a bobcat is
Yeah,
the
that's
best
right.
way, although we're getting a case, if we in fact get it. Richie, you have anything to say about that?
No, it's just the points that have already been brought up, the age of the unit, and we actually, as I said, we recognize the need for this equipment. A couple of years ago, we started setting aside funds in a reserve account dedicated to this piece of equipment. And that Pat Patterson feels, Highway Superintendent feels that it's beyond its life expectancy. And although it might be repaired, you're going to put a new pump in it, hydraulic pump. You still got a 23-year-old piece of equipment. And it's utilized quite a bit by the Highway Department in multiple tasks. And it is, I think, a necessary item. And it's just that we don't have the complete funds now to do it, so that's why we're going to pay for it over a year or two. And if the board decides to go ahead and do it.
Yeah, I think everyone on the board received this email from Pat.
Yeah.
And basically, the cost of the machine is $76,203. He's requesting the board approve a 3-year lease, breaking up the payments to $25,986, and at the end of the 3 years, for $1, we own the machine. This will come with the attachments that we mentioned before. So, I'll ask for a motion. Oh, and by the way, this is on state bid. We were talking about the state bid on the other things. This is on state bid, so we don't have to get any other prices.
And Pat pointed out too that, you know, he thinks that there might be a market for this used piece of equipment, so we might get a little bit more
Yeah.
back from it. And he's maintaining a lot of the parts can be utilized on the new equipment, so we don't have to go to that addition, you know, the
Yeah.
forks and things.
Yeah, we've been routinely going out to bid on auctions for the...
For the old
Yeah,
equipment,
yeah,
right.
it's been
So-
doing us very good. So I'll ask for a motion.
Can we have some discussion on it, or?
All right, let me get a motion to purchase it. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a
Motion.
Okay, Richie made it, seconded. Now,
So-
discussion.
Is this something that we can go, thinking along the lines of what I was talking about a couple minutes ago, with equipment that West Point has at DPW, is this something that do we need right now, or do we have some time to see if they have a skid steer? I call it a Bobcat, I've seen them over there on post, you know, so, but, I mean, is this something that would be worth investigating? To see if either wait until we do have the money for it, or is this our trial to see if we can in fact start something to start sharing equipment with the folks a couple of miles up the road. And I have to say also that what's also on the table, and we're going to talk about it some more next week, is the whole thing with the funding for the stretcher system for the ambulance corps. And, you know, so I sort of think we're going to need to, I think we're going to have to come up with and make a decision in terms of where right now our greatest need is and where our greatest priority needs to be. So just, again, put that on the table for us.
Kelly,
to be
where do
thinking
we have
about.
the money for this? What do we have?
We budgeted, I think we have $60,000 in there.
In the reserve?
Yeah, maybe it's less than that. We
Pat's
budgeted-
email said just shy of that.
It did, okay. So that's 2 payments. And then the third payment would be budgeted in the next budget.
Can I ask you a few questions?
Sure.
So like in terms of ambulance, and they deserve a good hit, we all know that. It's been a little bit traumatic for the last couple of years, and we're keeping the ball afloat down there. Lost a few vehicles. You can't go from a highway reserve fund to do anything for the ambulance corps, is that correct?
I'm sorry, ask me again?
So in other words, here's highway, here's ambulance.
Yeah.
So what I want to say that people may not have seen, we're not just sitting here throwing money out the window. Pat Patterson and I, in the last 2 years in budget season, have come very close to getting into a fist fight over the cemeteries. People like the cemeteries to have the grass cut and have it look nice, as do I. The town took over these cemeteries probably back when Chris was on the board, a little bit before that. They want them to look nice. There was a private contract for, it was either $14,000 or $19,000 a couple of years ago. They were very unhappy with the contractor. Everybody knows how I feel about the private sector. I think there needs to be a balance. I want it to stay that way. Pat ended up talking us into hiring a couple of guys and doing a much better job, part-timers that work for the town. This year during budget deliberations, the same thing happened. We were butting heads. He had $34,000 in there and we cut it. I do not know how he's going to cut that grass because there's no money there for it. That's cut. And he barely has enough people. When you talk about the skid steer, when they pave, they don't have a lot of laborers, so they need the bucket, they need the sweeper, they need the forks to do those things. So it's not just a snowplowing piece of equipment, it's a year-round piece of equipment. And if we could get something from West Point or wherever, lickety-split, but I'm just going to say that Pat's not running around throwing money out the window. He's being responsible with what he's doing.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor, seconded. Any other discussion? And I would have to ask for all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Aye.
I'm going to say nay.
Nay, okay. All right. Anything else that we haven't covered tonight?
I got a note for you that may be of interest to people. It's, you guys are familiar with the system that allows you to get these updates from the post. Apparently they're having a force protection exercise tomorrow that will close all the ACPs for a limited period of time, all the entry control points there. So for those people who may work over there or have some reason to go to the commissary or something, may be impacted by that. Just want you to know.
Finally, at Brooks's Lake Park, on the playground, on one of the benches, I found a small kiddie computer, I guess you might call it. It's kind of it looks like an expensive piece of equipment. It was just laying there on the bench. I took a picture of it, I gave it to Aaron, I told Aaron to put it on Facebook. So if anybody's hearing me out there and doesn't have it, or lost it, it's in my truck.
I've got one more alibi.
Yes, sir.
If it's okay, and Richie got me thinking about it. One of the things that's going on over on Post is something we're going to be increasingly hearing more about it. The acronym is FIP. It stands for Facility Improvement Plan. It's a multi-billion-dollar 15-year plan that is going forward over there. A lot of infrastructure, a lot of building improvements, academic building improvements, all kinds of things like that. What got me thinking about it is I cannot help but think, it hasn't been said yet, but I cannot help but think with all the contract work that's going to be coming over there in the next 15 years, they're going to need places to stay, they're going to need places to eat, they're going to need places to park, they're going to need office space, and that's really what, Richie, what you got me thinking about. They're going to need office space, they're going to be needing a lot. And this is, in my opinion, an ideal opportunity for this community. They're going to be here. The money's going to be spent, multi-billions of dollars over there.
Say 15 year?
15-year program. That's what they're saying right now, yeah. 15-year program, and tremendous, tremendous opportunity on a lot of different fronts. So business development, community, the ICSA stuff that we're talking about, all of this it's almost, my opinion, it's almost going to be a shame on us if we don't take advantage of this. And, us as a community. So there's a lot of potential, lot of opportunity. So, sorry for not mentioning that before.
Gentlemen,
Bob, if you would,
Yes.
3 copies. 3 copies, one for you, one goes back to Mike, one goes to us. ALS agreement.
okay.
You sign, send a copy to Mike, and send a copy to me. Please.
Okay, and then they gotta send us one copy back when they sign it.
Yes, because they didn't sign on the last one because the price changed.
Yeah.
That's
okay.
correct.
Okay. Yeah, I'll take care of that.
Thank you.
So what'd you say, you want one, Mike,
And yourself.
and myself, okay. Ask for a motion to adjourn?
Motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hoorah.
Thank you very much.